Good morning, everyone in the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night. My name is Thomas T. Canary, and the one, the only, the rest are imitators. Ladies and gentlemen, I am super happy to bring you today another Mailgun webinar, ladies and gentlemen. Super excited. I have two individuals today that have literally taught me the world of deliverability. I've been in email for almost 8 years now, and these two folks have literally taught me everything I know. So I'm super grateful to have them here. Very excited. We are talking about optimizing your email strategy in 2025. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is 2025. I'm still getting used to that. I keep writing 2024, but I'm getting better at writing 2025. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's see really quick. Where is everyone in the world right now? Let's see in the chat. We see Atlanta, Georgia, from India, Cologne, Germany, SoCal, Milwaukee. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right. And let's get our two guests going here. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Schafer, our Senior Manager of Deliverability and Compliance. Nick, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for the intro. And I've been on a lot of webinars with you, and I love your intros each and every time. So thanks again for having me.
Of course, Nick, of course. And ladies and gentlemen, Kate Nowrouzi, our Vice President of Deliverability and Product Strategy. Kate, how are you doing today? Good to see you.
Good to see you too as well. I would love to know what you have for breakfast because this much I'm gonna have that tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for the kind intro. Super excited to be here. Nick and I have been collaborating for many, many years, maybe 10, 15 years. And I have had the pleasure of knowing Thomas Tiber since I joined Mailgun about 7 years ago now. Yeah. 6. Yeah.
Long time. And yes, I have a large cup of very hot green tea every morning. So that is what gets me going. So to answer anyone's questions.
Okay.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, just to answer some real quick questions. Yes, so if you're asking about the replay, this replay will be available immediately after this webinar is done. You can either come back to this page, give it a refresh. It will take some time for it to kind of reprocess and get that going. So you can either come back to this page. 2, you can either go to youtube.com and go to our Mailgun page. We'll also have the webinar uploaded today as well, so you can take a look. So just giving you some housekeeping ideas. Also, for the Q&A, please throw those questions in our Q&A tab. It should be on the right-hand side of the Goldcast platform. So make sure you throw those in there, and please upvote the ones that you want us to answer towards the end, and we'll make sure we tackle those as much as we can. So, ladies and gentlemen, back to the topic that we were talking about. Optimizing your email strategy in 2025. These are tips coming from our 2025 State of Email Deliverability Report that just came out recently. We're super happy about it. I believe Casey was able to throw that in here earlier. Let me go ahead and see if I can pin that. Let me see. It was up here. Gotta go through all these amazing messages from all the people that are in here with us today. And big shout out to, go ahead.
The chat is blowing up. I do see a lot of people picking a side of Eagles or Chiefs for the big game coming up.
Oh man, I wanted the Bills, but that was painful. Oh goodness. Also, a quick shout out to our some of our reps in here, representing the Mailgun side. Casey throwing in some blog posts and stuff like that. Keep an eye out for that in the chat. Also, our support agents, Jesus and Amber, helping answer some even more technical questions in the Q&A. So big shout out to them. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get going into this, I wanted to kind of get a feel for the room, our viewership, y'all. How's everyone doing in this year of 2025 in your state of deliverability? So I'm going to throw this poll out here in just a moment. And the question is, what are your deliverability challenges for the year? Are you feeling authentication issues, bouncing compliance rates, list hygiene, quality, general reputation issues, lack of expertise, other? Go ahead and give us a vote. Just want to get a feel for the room, see how everyone's feeling. Here, I'll throw that up here on the channel. Let's see. List hygiene quality. List hygiene quality and general reputation issues are leading the way right now. Oh, bouncing complaint rates. Okay.
Me personally, the list hygiene data quality side is something that I see some senders could definitely use some improvement on from time to time. General reputation issues, absolutely.
And shout out to the people that are saying there's no option for all. Yeah, we totally get it. That's why we're glad you're here. We're glad you're here with us. Okay.
A lot of votes. Thanks everyone for participating.
Yeah. I'll leave that open for just a little bit longer. Let me go ahead and stop sharing that. But all right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this presentation. So really quick, I want to go over the agenda, what we're going to be talking about today. First and foremost, step number 1, we're talking about deliverability versus delivery, why they both matter. Number 2, top 5 reasons you are landing in the spam folder. Number 3, security best practices to protect your brand and customers. And number 4, the most important email metrics for 2025. All right. Let's get moving, shall we? So, first and foremost, delivery versus deliverability. Okay. So, Nick, Kate, what's the difference between delivery versus deliverability? And it's not just 2 letters marketers love, A and B. What do you think?
I love this question, and I love continuing to talk about this question after all of these years. It's something that still comes up a lot. Yeah, I mean, delivery. Everyone talks about deliverability, right? It's something that is a hot topic each and every year. But sometimes I think senders forget about that first piece, the delivery piece. Your first step is to get your messages delivered, right? And if you're not even getting a chance of getting that message in the inbox, then you're failing already. Deliverability obviously comes into play when we're talking about, okay, the message is delivered, it's handed off to the recipient server. Where's it going to be placed? Is it going to be placed in the spam folder? Is it going to be placed in the inbox? That's where deliverability comes into play. Yes, you should absolutely focus on getting as many messages delivered to the inbox. But if you miss out on reading those logs, like maybe some bounces are occurring that you weren't aware of, it's really important to first make sure you get those messages delivered.
I usually like to use this example because, as Nick mentioned, after all of these years, we keep hearing this, especially with the marketers, when we are talking about how to improve their inbox rate. They keep saying, oh, but our deliverability rate is at 98%. It seems that we are landing at all the ISPs. And what is my next question always is that, how would you know that out of that 98%, all of your emails went to the inbox? So I refer to delivery versus deliverability as science versus art. By the science, I mean the infrastructure, making sure that you have all authentications in place and using the right platform, right infrastructure to send email to the ISPs. So the first part is the emails need to be accepted. So if you're sending 100 emails and 99 of them is being accepted, the next question is, where did they land? If they land in the inbox, it means it counts towards your deliverability. If they land in the spam folder, that's a missed opportunity because most of the people don't check their spam folder. Even I have a background, half of my career, I work at an anti-spam operations at AOL and Verizon. And ISPs have that knowledge. Senders don't. And one of the things that they can do is to maybe use C testing, monitor their open rates. There are lots of things that we are going to cover during this webinar, but I would like to think about the delivery as a science, deliverability as the art of getting into the inbox. That's the piece that a sender pours into the campaign. Is it relevant? Are we targeting the right audience? And if that lands into the inbox, that is going to be counting towards the success of a campaign.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up. Those are all really good points, Kate. But like the report that Casey shared and Thomas just mentioned, like let's really in 2026, like let's try to drop this down because we're at 88%, I believe, looking at these numbers. There's a key difference between them. Let's make sure we understand those differences and set ourselves up for the most success possible. And I actually saw a question come in, and this is a perfect opportunity to address it. We talked about where that messages goes, inbox, spam folder. There are other folders, promotions folder. I know that's a hot one that comes up all the time. Promotions folder is the inbox. If your messages are going there and you don't want them to end up there, well then relook at the message. Are you doing anything that could be identified as promotional? And just take a good hard look, because that main primary inbox is meant for direct person-to-person communication. So I know that's always something that comes up, but I wanted to answer it when I just saw it. So
yeah, so true, so true. We see that so much these days. In the last few years, it's been like, okay, what do I need to do to not get in the promo box? So it's like, well, it's still the inbox, but yes, establish and evaluate. Are you doing something that is considered promotional? Maybe you need to work on your verbiage and subject lines from there. But one little statistic that we noticed from the state of email deliverability report, and it was in total, nearly 88% of senders couldn't correctly identify what the delivery rate measures. So that was an interesting number that we had noticed. Any comments on that?
Yeah, that I would think that there is a large portion of the senders that they don't realize how important it is to land in the inbox, and the numbers of accepted is not a reflection. It is good to have a high accepted rate, not outright get rejected. But what is not good, and sadly not being monitored, is the amount of emails going to the spam folder. And there are so many tools such as seed testing that you can include in each and every campaign to see where are you landing. So that's one of the tools that the senders can use in order to measure their spam complaint. And also monitoring the spam complaints, of course. Because if you have high spam complaints and you don't do anything about it, then you are increasing the chances of going to the inbox in future campaigns.
Got it. All right. Now moving on through here. Top 5 reasons you're landing in the spam folder. All right. So from the top, poor list collection and hygiene practices. You two, how are we feeling on these?
This is my favorite one. Like, data is king in my mind, and you have to make sure that you are capturing really good information about your potential customers. Obviously you always want to get consent, permission to send to your end users. One of the things, especially on the second point, keep invalid and high risk addresses off your list and check regularly. How you spam traps. This happens. I see it all the time. Bots are out there. They sign up on forms that aren't protected. If you leave that stuff unchecked, you could be putting the data quality of your list at risk. It definitely happens. So anytime you can add something like validation on top of those sign up forms, you're setting yourself up for better success, because the last thing you want to do is spend all this time working on a campaign, building it out perfectly, nailing the design, and then you're sending to a bunch of people that aren't going to do anything with it because they didn't actually sign up. So really paying attention to that piece is really important. And engagement is something that comes into play. You can have a large list, but if those customers, those recipients aren't engaging with the lists, you should think twice about sending them at the same frequency. One of the pieces of our validation service is engagement validation. It'll tell you, is this an engaging user or not? That's very valuable information that you should be using when you're just trying to kind of maintain the quality and hygiene of the list that you're sending to. And yeah, test whatever you can with your campaigns. Kate, what are your thoughts?
I always say bigger is not necessarily better, and that is definitely applies here, because A lot of marketers think that the longer, bigger list is always better. It is always a battle between deliverability people and marketing people in order to convince them to target the most engaged, because they are going to say, oh, I have 1 million email addresses in my database. If I only look at the engaged, that would only be 200K. So if I don't send email to those 800K, that's the lost revenue. That is exactly the problem, because those 800K inactive users or unengaged users are the ones that pulling down the reputation of the IP and the domain or the subdomains within the ISP's algorithms. And one thing that I want to make sure that people who switch platforms keep in mind is to make sure you take your suppression list with you. Because if people complained and they didn't want to hear from you, or they bounced at some point, and you have that stored in your suppression list, when you move to a new platform, you should not be just starting from zero. You should have that. Otherwise, the warming up your IPs and your new domains is not going to be as successful. There are tools in the market that you can run in order to see, or they score the quality of the list. So for example, at Mailgun, I think we have verification tool that when you run a list, let's say of 1 million email addresses, given we are sending to billions of customers every day, we have visibility into whether or not an email address is engaged. So there are two parts. One part is whether or not the email is formatted properly. Does it have the @ sign? So that's an easy part. The challenging part is to know whether or not this is a good email. It could be a trap. If there is no engagement, it could very, very possibly be a trap email address. And all of these ISPs, they have a trap network. If you hit a certain number of traps, they are going to either spam folder your future traffic or block the IP outright. So it depends on. Microsoft SNDS is the only platform that shows the trap hits. Other ISPs, they do not yet. They may do that in future. I think AOL and Yahoo may go that way. But the best person to determine whether or not the emails are valid or not is the sender. If you organically collect your emails from the people who would like to hear from you, not buying a list, not renting a list, none of those has played. They don't even work short time anymore. So my recommendation is definitely focus on the quality of your list. If you have an old list, for example, I have one customer that says, oh, we have a billion email addresses in our database. We are only using 200 million. And they ran the email verification tool, and they found out about like half of that list has not had any opens or clicks in 12 months. So data is king, as Nick mentioned, but a good quality data, not like the longer list is not going to help your revenue. So.
Yeah, I think one more call out that I didn't mention, I don't think you did either, because I get it. Like, we said it, right? Less is more. But that's hard for marketing people to stomach. Like, you have built this large list. What we're saying is not that you can't send to the less engaged users. It's just determining frequencies. Everyone is different. We all are, creatures of habit. Maybe someone really loves getting those messages. Yes, absolutely. Send those messages to those users all day, every day, if that's what they want. But it's just about segmenting and bucketing those. Sunset policies are something I think all senders should incorporate. And it's all, one shoe doesn't fit everyone. It's based off of how often you send. What is your frequency as a sender? What do your customers expect? So there's not one like bulletproof, say, user hasn't engaged in 6 months, like you need to remove them or send to them less. It doesn't work across the spectrum because there's just so many variables that come into play.
Yeah, Nick touched on the very good point as sunset policies. I would really go with 90 days engagement. I used to say 12 months, and now I have lowered my window to literally like 90 days. If someone is not opening or clicking, put them in a different bucket, as Nick mentioned. Another thing that I want to mention before we move on to the next topic is a lot of customers by law, whatever that law is, which is very annoying, they are required to send a privacy policy emails across all the emails that they have ever had in their system. And they come to me and they say, hey, we know half of these emails are inactive. We know that they are not even good, but we are required by law to send a privacy policy updates. What should we do? My recommendation is set up a few IPs, maybe 2 or 4 IPs for these kind of exercises that you do once a year, and create a different subdomain. So make sure they are not in any way or shape mixed in with your daily transactional emails. Have it different IPs set for these one-off campaigns that actually those are not a bad exercise. If you look at the bounce rate, you probably should be updating your suppression list. They are actually another way of validating whether or not emails are active. So I highly recommend the privacy policy emails are not being sent, even if required by law, not from the same exact IPs that you daily use.
Love it. Tons of good takeaways from there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, Nick used to tell me all the time, use the data right, but use it, correctly. And even sunset policies, use those tons of times, so lots of good stuff there, lots of good stuff. And from Kate too as well, please take that suppression list with you wherever you go. If you're transferring different platforms, that stuff is going to follow you. So please remember that. All right, moving down the line here. Okay, so authentication policies. Oh, our favorite 3, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Kate, Nick, how are we feeling about these?
I think that SPF and DKIM everyone should be doing already. So I really would like to talk about DMARC here. I don't know Kate's opinion on this, but like that's where everything's going. Obviously, Yahoo Google announcements, things of that nature. DMARC policies are required. Everyone got it set up. Not everyone. I mean, you can look at the report numbers right there. It's definitely, there's more adoption. Things are going in the right direction. But my point here is that we shouldn't stop at P equals none. I know that was the requirements that came down. So everyone sending over X amount of volume needs to have this DMARC policy in place. But none is okay. And whenever I say none, it's a policy within the DMARC record, basically telling mailbox providers what to do if DMARC fails. I can see it coming down the road. I'm not going to give any dates because no one knows any dates, but just, I don't know, if you have some time, take a look at those DMARC reports that you should be getting and do the needful in terms of getting yourself set up to move to that next step, whether it's P equals quarantine or a P equals reject policy. That is something that everyone should be focusing on. It's cool to see the adoption. I'm glad that Yahoo and Google came out with that because it's something that there hasn't been a lot of adoption over the years. Now it's going in the right direction, so it's good to see. But SPF and DKIM, like I said, we all got that set up. You should be good on that. One note on that though is things happen. DNS records may get updated without you knowing. Just make sure you're monitoring logs, errors. There's third-party tools that you can use to make sure that you're not, have something misconfigured and messages being deferred or rate limited.
Yeah, so I just want to touch on because DMARC may sound very scary to the marketers. So I'm going to just go very simplified the 3 authentication protocols that we have on the screen here. So the SPF is basically it validates the IP address that the email is being sent from. Let's say if it is from Groupon, that IP is indeed coming from, the traffic is coming from Groupon. DKIM is an authentication method for confirming the domain that is the traffic is being sent. DMARC is a policy. It is an authentication policy, but it's mainly designed in a way to tell the ISPs what to do with a piece of email if it fails SPF or DKIM. So imagine if SPF and DKIM are here, they work hand to hand. And by the way, I think most of the platform these days are automatically signing with SPF and DKIM. I know for a fact that any piece of email that leaves the Mailgun platform is authenticated with both SPF and DKIM. So if we have SPF here, we have DKIM here, SPF for the IP, DKIM for the domain, DMARC comes and sits on top and looks at both. So basically, DMARC is the power a sender has in order to define what an ISP needs to do in order if one of these protocols fails, if SPF fails or DKIM fails. So if I am a sender, I have the opportunity of applying 3 policies to the DMARC. The first policy is P equal to none, meaning only send me the report if I fail DMARC, if I fail DKIM or SPF. The second policy is P equal to quarantine, meaning if I fail one of the authentication policies, if my traffic is failing, we are telling the ISPs to put it into the quarantine the traffic, spam folder it. The third policy, which is my favorite, and I know it is Nick's favorite as well, because we always talk about this and we are always thinking about even having the t-shirt that says P equals to reject. The reject policy is the most effective policy because you are telling the ISPs, if I fail authentications method, SPF or DKIM, reject my traffic. Don't even put it in the spam folder. Imagine if you are a financial organization and that email goes to the spam folder and you see it there and you might click. So it doesn't even matter if you're a financial organization, any organization, if you are a victim of a phishing attack, your customers are going to leave you. So it's extremely important. When you have SPF and DKIM configured, make sure you have a policy of a DMARC record. Start with P equal none only for a week or month in order to get used to the ins and outs and the reports. Move to quarantine and to reject within 90 days. That's all for me.
Just get there to P equals reject. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Just get there, find a way. Speaking of finding a way, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a user of Mailgun, I just want to give you a little heads up. We've got a cool little implementation that's going to be helping you out pretty soon for DMARC. And yes, this is for Mailgun users, but that's all I can say. So keep an eye out in your blog, our blog post at mailgun.com, and you'll see a little announcement about that pretty soon. So just a little heads up, just a little teaser. But okay, moving down the line here on authentication policies. Okay, 3, broken email design. Oh, and my favorite article, RFC 8058. Nick and Kate, what do you got for us?
You want to go first on this one, Kate?
Sure. So this was one of the requirements that came from the Yahoo Google announcement. But honestly, it was around. It has been having an unsubscribe button has been a good practice or the best practice for many, many years. I always am fascinated to see when Yahoo announcement, Google announcement came in and everybody was like, oh, we have to Google. What is this RFC? No, you were supposed to do this all the time. This is nothing new. The easy unsubscribe is the best practice. I was actually looking at MAC, the cosmetic company, that they had sent me an email. Number 1, I don't remember I ever signed for their emails. But another thing that was very confusing to me was when I tried to unsubscribe, it took me to a website and asked me to create an account. I never even had an account. So basically, your unsubscribe should be 1 click. You shouldn't take people to the website. You shouldn't be, asking them questions or say, hey, you want to leave this, no, 1 and done. If people find it difficult to unsubscribe, you know what they do? They report a spam. Then they report a spam, then your reputation is going to go down. So, Nick, you want to add anything to them on 1 click?
I actually mentioned something on this earlier when I was talking about something unrelated, but it apparently is all related. You don't want to waste your time building the perfect email that you think checks all the boxes. You spend a lot of time designing it, and then you forget little things like RFC 8058. Like, you forget to do that. You forget to test your emails across like different browsers, and you forget to test inbox placement. Like, these things, like, you can do all of the good work, but all of it could be for nothing if there's something broken in the email and you didn't catch it before you actually sent that out to your end users. So it's really important to do that, final check before you're about to, send out your campaigns. Make sure everything looks good, everything's displaying properly, and run some inbox placement tests to make sure that your reputation is where it needs to go. Because if you're sending out, a large campaign to all of the customers that want your traffic, but something happened and your messages are going to the spam folder, then like, what's the point? You just missed that opportunity. So check it before you do those, live sends. It's a really important piece that I think could be easily overlooked.
Yes, and unsubscribe policies too, especially like I see an email in my inbox and I want to unsubscribe from them. I should be able to just click and be gone from the list right away. And then all of a sudden you get an email in your inbox. Oh, are you sure you want to unsubscribe?
Yeah.
Y'all, don't do that.
Don't do that. To Kate's point, like, senders need to understand this. If it's not easy to unsubscribe, they will complain. And the reason why you should care about that is like the number one negative signal that mailbox providers are looking for to make informed decisions on what they should do with traffic from a sender. You do not want complaints at all. So make sure they can understand.
Because it's not that people don't have any other option. Like, report the spam is right there, and it's done in a second. So
are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I don't want this anymore.
And people change their mind. You might as well sign up for something. I use the Schafer app, and I love to hear from them, and then I don't, and then they should honor. People change their mind.
Exactly, and that's why we talk about a 90-day sunset policy, ladies and gentlemen. 90 days.
90 days. Stick to it.
Exactly. All right. Exactly. All right, moving down the line here. Up next, poor sending practices, and this is involving the CCPA, GDPR, and Can Spam Act. Nick, Kate, how are we feeling?
Yeah, you want to make sure you're following all regulations, depending on what you're sending. That is kind of like one of those first checklists that you should make sure you're following. But just in general, like, sending practices. I think we've probably all read, if not most of us have read, all of the articles and information, whether it's on, the Mailgun blog or elsewhere. There's a lot of articles. There's a lot of information on email sending best practices. You need to be making sure that you're monitoring this stuff. Like, what are you doing to ensure your traffic is getting to the people that want to receive them? Regularly monitor complaints and reputation KPIs in Google Postmaster Tools and Microsoft SNDS. You'll see that listed there. Segmenting and personalized. We've actually touched on it quite a bit already in this webinar. It's so important. It is really important. You should not treat everyone the same. All of your end users have different habits. They enjoy different things. They don't all want to get bombarded by emails, although there may be a select group of recipients that do really want to see those messages like every day, but not everyone kind of fits into that. Be mindful of send frequency.
I think it is very valuable if you can provide a preference center and so people can say, hey, I would like to hear once a week or every day or once a month. If people can tell you as a brand, if there is a place that they can go and modify their frequency or expectations, that would be really beneficial for your brand. Another thing I wanted to touch on. And then as far as like being mindful about the frequency, you can have different buckets for, let's say, most engaged users based on their, like, if they're opening, clicking, not just open and click on your campaigns, they can be placed in the active bucket. Then you can have a middle bucket. Those are the people who with opens, like, let's say once a month, and the third bucket 0 to 90 days. And your fourth bucket basically should be something that you can do re-engagement campaigns for the people who have not been engaged with your brand over 90 days, but do not do it, as we mentioned, from the same IPs. You have to have a separate IP and domain for those kind of re-engagement or some privacy policy traffics. And so yeah, different behavior. You need to treat an email address as a person. Imagine how intrusive it could be if someone doesn't want to hear from you and you keep knocking at their door every single day. You don't want to be annoying. So that's very, very important to respect the inbox and treat it as a person.
100%. And you both always taught me to, like, always engage with people that want to have your email or to receive your email. Because like you said, that's a person on the other end of that computer screen or phone or whatever. But it's like you're invading people's privacies at the end of the day. But one thing we were noticing in the report is, we found 70% of senders survey are not using Google Postmaster tools or any other mailbox provider services like Microsoft SNDS or Yahoo Sender Hub. So ladies and gentlemen, you've got a ton of tools out there to help you, with your sending practices, no matter what. So check them out, use them, utilize them. We utilize them every day here at Mailgun and MailJet. So yeah, check those out.
Yeah, that's a huge miss. Whenever I was reading the report, that one kind of struck me as, oh man, that's sad because it's golden information that you can be using to, further improve your campaigns. Yes, you can look at all of the metrics, opens, clicks, whatever you have internally. You can look at that, but you want to see how you're being perceived. What does Google tell you? What does Google tell you? It might be different than what your data is telling you. So check all of the outlets you have.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. I mean, actually, this number was very worrisome when I looked at it. Mm-hmm. Knowing 70% of the senders do not use Google Postmaster or SNDS. That's a very, very high number. And it's not difficult. Like Google Postmaster dashboard is very, very easy to read. So don't assume, oh, I'm a marketer, I'm not technical. You don't even need to be technical to looking at any of these dashboards. It shows, like, Google color codes their reputation. Like if you are in red, it's bad. Then there is an orange and then there's a green. You can see the time frames. Oh, I was green and then there is a dip here in February. Then you can go take that data, what campaigns you did that caused the dip in people probably reported a spam or they didn't open or whatever. So use those. Those are free platforms. Google, by average, over 65% of the traffic on the internet is now Google or Google hosted domains. So Google alone can give you, they also can report on authentication. Mm-hmm. Google shows you if you're passing on SPF key. So it's not just reputation. There's a ton of good information through these Google Postmaster, Microsoft SNDS, and Yahoo Sender Hub. All of these, my favorite one is GPT, Google Postmaster, not ChatGPT. This is something else.
Love it. All right. Okay, moving on. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, last note on that. Yeah, someone was saying in there, I've never heard of Google Postmaster tools. Yes, Google it, check it out, use these tools. They're great. Okay, moving on, shall we? All right, bad architecture. Oh, lordy. Dedicated IP versus shared IP. One of the questions I used to get all the time, kind of going through and answering questions for our viewerships and stuff like that. Nick, Kate, how do we feel about those?
You say that's your favorite question. I like to follow it up with my favorite question or response in the email industry, and it depends, because that is how we answer. I don't like to, but 90% of the questions, it really depends. There's so many variables at play. Should you use a dedicated IP or should you use a shared IP? It's a good question that everyone wants to know, but it's based off of needs. Maybe you don't send a lot of traffic and you can't, build the reputation of your own dedicated IP. That's fine. That's what kind of shared IPs are for. The problem is that if you are sending enough volume and you're using a shared IP, you're exposing yourself to risk that is not your own. You could be impacted by other senders on the shared IP. At Mailgun, we try to make sure our customers are doing the right thing, but sometimes, bad traffic gets out and it could impact, that traffic on a shared IP. Segmenting is another really important piece. Like, you should not be sending your transactional messages on the same stream or same IP as your marketing messages. People want to reset their password, but say you had a marketing campaign that didn't do too well, and your reputation dropped. Now people can't reset their passwords. What are they going to do then? Most people do not go check their spam folder. That's just a reality of how, we talked about a second ago, respect the people's inbox. Like that's their place. And a lot of stuff that gets put into the spam folder is stuff they don't want to see, and they know that. So yeah, make sure you do all kinds of segmentation. You can look at it right here. This is all 3 different types of segmentation. I think Kate mentioned subdomain segmentation earlier in the webinar. Separate those streams as much as possible to isolate reputation. There's a lot of good things that you can do there, and if you're putting it all on the same pipeline, so to speak, it could cause problems. Segmentation is very important.
Yeah, I want to touch on 2 items based on Nick's response. The dedicated versus shared IP, we hear that all the time. We have customers that they come and on day one, they want to send from the shared pools. They said, oh, we want to use the warm IPs. Something that they are not realizing is at the minimum, Google is very, very strong looking at the domain reputation. So the IP reputation has a lower importance in the Google world. And the reason for that is we have run out of IP space. There's no more V4 IPs. A lot of senders are utilizing shared IPs, whether they are small or big. It is extremely important. If you are not sending enough and you are on any shared pools of the provider, make sure you're segmenting based on the subdomain. So for example, transactional.domain.com, marketing1.domain.com, marketing1 is your most engaged, marketing2.domain.com. And another thing, like I know that at Mailgun, actually Nick's team has built a very sophisticated algorithm for our shared pools. We have, I think, over 12 different shared pools. And when you enter, you are basically given the benefit of the doubt. You are in the middle. Based on your behavior, if you have low bounce rate, low spam complaints, you kind of move up into the pool. So you go and sit with better people with better reputation. If you are not doing best practices and you have a high bounce rate, complaint rate, then you get downgraded to the different pools. So shared pools are not necessarily a bad thing. Not the reason that if you have low traffic and you want the dedicated IP in order to protect yourself, it takes forever to build reputation on a cold IP if you don't have enough traffic. I have a customer who sends 20 million emails per IP address every day, not every month, every day. So it doesn't mean, the question I get from support and our customers all the time, what is the minimum number of emails? What is the minimum traffic that justifies the dedicated IP? And as Nick says, there is no golden number. I'm not going to say, oh, if you are sending over 200K or if you're sending over 2 million emails, you need a dedicated IP. Really, if you are, and by high volume, I would say if you are sending over 200K, if you are looking for a number, I would say 200K a day would justify a dedicated IP. But you don't need more IPs per 100K. You can scale on 2 IPs all the way. You are at 2 million or 20 million, basically. So yeah, that's the part I wanted to touch on before we move to the next.
Yeah. And some from the stats that we were able to find from the state deliverability report, so it was around 50% of high volume senders, 100K and above, do separate promo and transactional email traffic. However, among all senders, 50% say they do not, and more than 12% are unsure. So yep.
Yeah, well, I'm glad 50% are, but those other 50%, don't mix the traffic. It's not a great idea.
Please don't, please. Not a good idea. You're not gonna have a good time. All right. Moving down the line. Oh, we've only got so much time here, ladies and gentlemen. So let's go ahead and make sure we cover all the points. Let me see here. Oh, my little lag. Give me just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. For some reason, my slide deck has just stopped working. But, okay.
Here
What we can do here is, there we go.
Yeah. So as we mentioned at the beginning of this the webinar, we did touch briefly on the Yahoo Google announcement. So what I would love to close this webinar with is also the same announcement that came in. The reason for that announcement is not to make the sender's life difficult, to enforce them to go through learning about DMARC, implementing DMARC. If you don't know it, go to the third parties and so forth. This is about email security. This is about keeping the ecosystem, the email ecosystem, free of spammers and phishers. So this is actually working in all the senders and marketers' benefit because it prevents these phishing. If you have a proper authentication, SPF I hope everyone on this webinar is doing those two. If you are not, please email me, kate@mailgun.com, and I would love to chat with you and understand why you are not signing with SPF and DKIM. But the DMARC piece is probably the most important thing to focus to this year. If you don't have a DMARC policy yet, make it a priority in Q1 to have moved again. P equals to none, P equals to quarantine, P equals to reject. Make it a priority. We don't know when ISPs are going to enforce it. You may wake up tomorrow morning and Google and Yahoo say, hey, we are expecting P equal reject if you're sending more than 5,000 emails a day. So now you have time, make it a priority. There is some work. If you don't have a technical team on your end, there are a ton of vendors out there that they can help you with DMARC implementation, Redshift, Demartian. There are a few that comes to mind that they are doing a great job in that regards. Nick, you wanna?
Yeah, real quickly, because I know we have one more slide to get through and then Q&A. I spend a lot of my time on the anti-abuse side of the house these days, and security is very important to me. We offer some really nice features, one being 2FA and SAML. If you have those capabilities, make sure you get that enabled. It will go a long way in helping just secure your account. And the other piece, passwords and API key security is very important to me these days. Just speaking of passwords in general, passwords should never be easy. They need to be complex. You shouldn't know what your password is. Use a password manager as an example. But the second bullet point here, API keys are never to be shared. What we've seen, bad actors are targeting, our customers, other customers at other ESPs because of, API keys being leaked through, web configurations. This stuff happens. Bad actors are, they're on the hunt. We're on the hunt as well. But just make sure you're doing your part, making sure you're not exposing credentials anywhere in your code to make sure that abuse doesn't happen on your account, because it will happen if you are unfortunately exposed to this. So yeah, do your part, and we'll help from our side to make sure your account is secure.
I can move on to the next slide. Okay, this is going to be our last slide, winning metrics for 2025. Yep. We almost touch on all of these things throughout the whole time. So, you can see that the number one is Google Postmaster tool. A lot of people are not using, unfortunately. Please sign up. It's free. It has so much value. And it also, another thing I love about Google Postmaster is there are lots of articles there like, oh, how I can improve this. Then it takes you to another part of Google, and they have done a great job explaining it. Comcast also has a very, very good Postmaster page with the explanation of best practices and so forth. Okay, Nick, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, click CTR over opens. I saw a lot of chatter earlier in the chat regarding bots and how they impact opens. It's true. Opens aren't as great as they used to be. They are still valuable though. You still need to track them. Mailgun does a good job of filtering out those bot opens. But look at other metrics. Look at that clicks more closely. Look at what those users are doing whenever they're clicking through your emails. Really follow that to make informed decisions on follow-up campaigns. And the last piece, bounce rate. I spoke on it briefly. You can get caught up in the whole delivery versus deliverability thing, but also just look at, our messages failing for any particular reason. There could be deferrals that are happening. There could be, messages that are blocked erroneously. That happens, but the key is just looking at your bounce logs, looking through failures, what's causing them. Sometimes it can be a small thing that just needs to be fixed, and you can get that taken care of. But like if you're not looking at those bounce logs, you could be missing really important information.
Exactly. Sounds good. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some great stats to track in 2025 and also some great security best practices. We got a few minutes for some Q&A right now, so let's go and take a look here, shall we? All right, let me go ahead and pull this down so we can take a look at some of these questions. Ladies and gentlemen, please upvote the questions that you really want to answer the most, because we only got so much time here. So let me go ahead and take a look at some of these. Okay, Matthew wanted to know, I'll throw this up here. Matthew wanted to know, we use a registration tool whose emails are DCOM compliant, but they fail SPF alignment due to return path. Any thoughts on how I can proceed?
Let's see, let me just reread it. Registration tool emails are DCOM compliant, but they fail SPF alignment due to the return path. Yeah, I would just look at how those, I'm not familiar with the registration tool, but the return path is what the SPF record is based off of. So whatever domain is being used in that return path, that's what the receiving servers are doing that SPF lookup on to make sure those IPs are allowed. So I would just dig into there, see if you can ask whoever you're working with on this registration tool.
Got it. All right. Go ahead and pull that one down. All right, moving on here. Let's see what else has got a ton of upvotes. Oh, this one wow, okay. So Allison wanted to know, how do you handle bounced emails who are bouncing due to mailboxes being out of storage? Ooh.
I was just looking at this one, and I was gonna post this one as well. It's a great question, and I'm not gonna say it depends on this one, but it kind of depends. We do a lot of analysis. My team does a lot of analysis on bounces, and handling those bounces is really important. It dictates what you as senders do. What we have found is that, we might get an error message that says your mailbox is full, it's out of storage, whatever. Some mailbox providers actually want you to stop sending them messages right away, but it's not the same. There's little small variables in each of the error messages that can occur. So we take it a case-by-case basis, honestly. We look at codes along with the syntax of the bounce message, and then we will kind of classify that bounce accordingly. That's how we handle it. But if you're trying to do this yourself, I would really look at patterns and trends. Sometimes maybe you might see that bounce message one day and then it's gone the next day. But just give me context on how we handle it.
Yeah, I would recommend if you want to define a policy, I would give it 3 tries and then remove it from future mailing at the 3rd. One time, it could be a network error. It's actually these days, is there even a mailbox full thing happening at major ISPs? I haven't seen that error with definitely not with Google. I believe Gmail is unlimited. But if you are seeing that error, give it 2 more tries. At the 3rd time, if you're seeing it, definitely remove that email from your future mailing. Because what happens with these like forgotten mailboxes, like I have like, I don't know, 25 different mailboxes because I do a lot of testing. Some of them I haven't even logged in. Recently, I started getting emails from Google. You haven't logged into this account for two years. So they give me 30 days to log in. Otherwise, they will give it back, make it available for someone else to grab it. So my recommendation is give it 3 times and then out, due to if it is a mailbox full.
Got it. Okay, let me see here.
I'm reading through some of these questions. There's some good ones, Thomas. Do we just click on does the answer pop it up? Okay.
Yeah, just click on share and let's see which one you got here. I want to see, Nick.
Oh no, I can't. I was looking at the one that says, "Isn't there a risk in segmenting by subdomains?" If you see that.
Oh my God, I was looking at the same exact thing.
There you go. I like that
I
one.
found it from Ryan.
There we go.
Yeah, good one from Ryan.
Kate, I want to hear your thoughts on this one first. I have an opinion on it as well, but yeah, since we both like this one.
Google and AOL Yahoo, they are very, very strong on subdomain reputation. I'm not sure about Microsoft, probably they are, but I'm 100% sure about Google. There is zero risk in segmenting based on subdomain. Google looks at the subdomain reputation first. If they don't find the subdomain, then they fall back to the organizational domain. So definitely segment your traffic. If you have like different promotional, like it is quarterly promotional, maybe go to promotional4.domain.com. Segment the traffic based on frequency, based on the nature of the traffic that you are sending, and there is zero risk. I haven't read the whole thing. I just read the first. But Nick, you add anything else, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah. So I would be much in line with what you just said in terms of like segment. Like that's always kind of what I think in these situations. There might be another part of this question, at least I'm interpreting it. It might be around frequency, because he mentioned quarterly. So if it is something that's infrequent, that is something you want to keep an eye on, because if you only send it, each quarter, there's that 3-month period in between sends. So you do want to try to get some traffic going, from time to time, if you can still use that. You don't want domains to sit for too long. That is a little bit of a concern. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Kate.
Yeah, have some traffic. It doesn't have to be, and whatever that frequency is. If you spike once a week on Tuesdays, that's okay. That is what the ISPs are going to get used to. They are expecting you to spike. But if you spike all over the place, then maybe that is not a good practice. But definitely segment based on subdomain, and keep the frequency going on. Don't go to zero traffic as much as you can. Send something like once a week, and then on your quarterly spikes, you should be fine.
Love it. That was a good one. Thank you, Ryan, for that question. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time we have today, unfortunately, because Nick's got to get to lunch and Kate's got to start her day, ladies and gentlemen. I have a really cool announcement. I know you wanted to get a lot of deliverability takeaways today and stuff like that, but I am happy to announce, if you are a fan of our show, Email Academy from Mailjet, flash news right here, ladies and gentlemen. Myself, Thomas Tiber Canarian, and my counterpart in deliverability, Nalia Hayes, are actually creating a show. It's going to be the Deliverability Academy presented by Mailgun. So that is coming very, very soon. So we want to give you, yes, you're going to see people like Kate, you're going to see people like Nick, and tons of other people within our organization that preach deliverability. We want to make everyone a better sender. That is our biggest goal over here, ladies and gentlemen, at Mailgun. So super excited about that. Keep an eye out on our blog, mailgun.com/blog, and keep an eye on your emails and stuff like that. We will be announcing that very soon. So very excited about that. But ladies and gentlemen, Kate Nowrouzi and Nick Schafer. Kate, where can people follow along with you if you got anything going on in the email world?
They can, if anyone who has a question, you are more than welcome to email me at kate@mailgun.com. My Twitter DMs are also open. You can find me on Twitter or email me directly, kate@mailgun.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Love it. Nick, how about you?
I would say go check out LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. That's probably my preferred channel. You can probably try to find me on Twitter. I don't use it as much as I used to, or I guess it's called X now. But yeah, LinkedIn, find me, send a message. Love to chat on there.
Love it, ladies and gentlemen. Love it. Love it. Also, too, season 6 of Emails Not Dead, our podcast, which is featuring tons of deliverability and email marketing folks, is coming out very soon. Make sure you follow along here. I'm going to drop a link for y'all in there. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to our wonderful speakers today. They are always bringing us the best takeaways, so I'm always super grateful for them. And these 2 individuals have taught me the most in my email deliverability career, so I'm very thankful for them. But, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. And we'll hope to see you soon, all right?
Thank you all.
All right.
Everyone.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.